Death is one of life's biggest mysteries. Throughout time, people have looked at the sky and wondered, what happens when we die? Today, we're going to explore some ideas, spiritual, scientific, and others, to try and understand what might be waiting for us. Although no one knows for sure, we can learn a lot by exploring the different beliefs and perspectives that people hold. Let's dive in together and see where these different paths lead us. To some, death is an ending, but to others it's a continuation, a doorway to something beyond what we know. Whether we approach it with curiosity, fear, or peace, death touches each of us in profound ways. Today we'll examine not only different ideas about what happens, but also the wisdom and lessons that these beliefs have for how we live. The stories, experiences, and traditions around death have shaped cultures for centuries and can offer us profound insights into what it means to be human. So let's open our minds and hearts and journey into one of the deepest questions we all share. What if death is not an end, but an awakening? What if everything we see, everything we fear about death, is just the beginning of something much grander, something beyond what our limited human senses can perceive? For some, these questions bring anxiety. For others, they bring hope. But what they undeniably do for everyone is remind us of our shared humanity, our curiosity, our fears, and our hopes for something more. It is the mystery of death that has fueled countless discussions, stories, and philosophies, all aiming to grasp what lies beyond the threshold of our physical existence. Death, in this sense, becomes not just an end, but a profound symbol of the unknown, a doorway that challenges us to think beyond the confines of our daily lives and imagine something greater. When I was a child, I remember visiting a Buddhist temple with my parents. There was a gentle monk there who spoke about life and death in a way that stuck with me. He said that death is not the end, but part of a journey. The Buddha taught about samsara, the cycle of birth, life, death, and rebirth. According to this belief, we are like travelers moving through different stages of existence. Think of it as a wheel. We are born, we live, we grow, and then we pass on, only to be reborn again. Each life is like a new chapter, where we continue to learn and grow. Buddhists believe that by understanding and breaking free from this cycle, we can reach enlightenment, nirvana, a state of true peace and freedom. So in this view, death is simply a transition to another part of the journey. The monk explained it in simple terms. Imagine you are on a boat, and death is just stepping off the boat onto a new shore. You don't disappear, you just change where you are. The journey continues, only now in a new place, with new experiences waiting for you. For those who live mindfully, who seek to understand themselves and others, death is seen not with fear, but with acceptance. The ultimate goal is to become free of the cycle, to reach nirvana, where suffering ends and true peace is found. I remember feeling both scared and comforted by these words. On one hand, it meant that death wasn't final, there was something beyond it. On the other, the idea of moving from one life to another made me realize that what we do in this life matters. Every action, every thought, has consequences that carry forward, not just in this life, but potentially in the next. It's all connected. This perspective encourages people to live well, to be kind, and to grow spiritually. By improving ourselves and being compassionate to others, we create better conditions not only for this life, but also for the lives that may come after. It's a beautiful, hopeful idea that each life is an opportunity to learn and become better, always moving closer to true freedom. I remember hearing another story from that monk. He spoke of a candle. He said, "Think of your life as a candle flame. When the candle burns out, the flame doesn't vanish. Instead, it ignites another candle. the flame continues, though the form changes. This idea to me was powerful. The soul is like that flame, passing on, taking new forms, but always continuing. And just as a candle illuminates the darkness, our actions in this life can bring light to others and perhaps to our future selves as well. Buddhism also teaches that suffering is an inherent part of life, and understanding the nature of suffering helps us break free from samsara. Death, in this context, is a reminder of impermanence, the idea that everything in life is transient and constantly changing. By embracing this impermanence, we can find peace in the face of death. The teachings of the Buddha encourage us to detach from material possessions and ego-driven desires, as these are sources of suffering. Death, then, is a natural progression that allows us to let go of what holds us back and move towards a higher state of consciousness. The concept of karma plays a crucial role in how Buddhists perceive death and rebirth. Every action we take, every decision we make, leaves an imprint on our soul, influencing the circumstances of our future lives. This belief fosters a sense of moral responsibility, urging us to act with compassion, kindness, and mindfulness. The idea that our current actions shape our future not only motivates ethical behavior, but also offers comfort. It reassures us that we have some control over our destiny, even beyond this life. In this way, death becomes a powerful motivator for living a life of virtue and purpose. Buddhist rituals around death also reflect these beliefs. For instance, when a person passes away, their loved ones often perform rituals that help guide the departed soul towards a better rebirth. Chanting, prayers, and offerings are made to ensure a peaceful transition. These rituals emphasize the interconnectedness of all beings and the role that family and community play in supporting one another through the cycles of life and death. The communal aspect of these practices provides comfort, reminding us that we are never alone, even in death. Buddhism also teaches about the bardo, a transitional state between death and rebirth. According to Tibetan Buddhist teachings, the bardo is a time when the consciousness of the deceased undergoes various experiences that reflect their past actions and mental states. The teachings emphasize that understanding and preparing for the bardo can help a person navigate it more peacefully, ultimately influencing their next rebirth. The idea of the bardo offers a fascinating insight into how death is not an abrupt ending, but rather a complex, transitional process that provides another opportunity for spiritual growth. From a scientific point of view, death is when the body stops working. The heart stops beating, the brain shuts down, and the body begins to break down. It can sound harsh, but it's a natural part of life. But even here, things aren't so simple. Science tells us that energy cannot be created or destroyed. It only changes form. This idea makes me wonder, if we are made of energy, what happens to that energy when we die? Could it transform into something else? Some scientists think that our consciousness might be connected to something bigger, something we don't fully understand yet. So even within science, there are still many questions about what death really means. Think about it this way. When a tree falls in a forest, its wood decays and it becomes part of the earth again. The nutrients go back into the soil and new life grows from it. In a similar way, the energy that makes up our bodies, our cells, atoms, and even our thoughts may not disappear entirely. They transform and continue to be part of the universe in some way. There are also studies in neuroscience and physics that explore the mysteries of consciousness. Some scientists have speculated that our minds could be more than just the result of brain activity. Could there be a part of us, our awareness, our sense of self, that continues after the physical brain has stopped working? It's a question that science hasn't yet answered, but it's one that opens up possibilities. Even though science often focuses on measurable facts, there are still aspects of death and consciousness that remain unknown. Some researchers have explored near-death experiences, those moments when people are declared clinically dead and then come back, often with vivid stories of seeing a bright light or feeling a deep sense of peace. These experiences raise more questions than answers, but they hint at the possibility that there could be more to death than just the end of biological functions. It's a reminder that even science, with all its knowledge, still has much to discover about what happens when we die. One famous example is the case of Dr. Eben Alexander, a neurosurgeon who had a near-death experience during a coma. He described vivid visions of a peaceful, heavenly realm, and it profoundly changed his perspective on life and consciousness. Though his story sparked controversy, it also inspired many people to think about consciousness beyond the purely physical realm. It suggests that maybe our minds, our souls, or whatever you choose to call it, are capable of experiences we cannot fully explain through our current understanding of biology. Even Albert Einstein once reflected on the mystery of death. He said, "The distinction between past, present, and future is only a stubbornly persistent illusion." For Einstein, time was not as linear as we tend to think of it, which makes the experience of death even more intriguing. Could it be that our concept of a final end is simply a limited perspective, one that doesn't capture the true essence of what we are? The scientific perspective also touches on the idea of quantum consciousness, a hypothesis proposed by some physicists and neuroscientists. According to this theory, consciousness could be a fundamental aspect of the universe, much like space and time. If this is true, then our individual consciousness might somehow persist beyond the death of our physical bodies, perhaps merging back into a larger, universal consciousness. Though still highly speculative, this idea offers a fascinating intersection between science and spirituality, suggesting that death might not be as final as it seems. The mystery of consciousness is one of the greatest challenges in modern science. Despite advances in neuroscience, the nature of subjective experience, what some call the hard problem of consciousness, remains elusive. How do physical processes in the brain give rise to the richness of our inner lives? This question becomes even more poignant when we consider the end of life. Could consciousness be more than just a byproduct of neural activity? Could it be that, in some form, our awareness continues, even after the body ceases to function? These questions push the boundaries of what science can currently explain, inviting us to remain open to possibilities. In addition, recent studies in fields like parapsychology have sought to investigate phenomena such as telepathy, precognition, and even communication with the deceased. While these studies are controversial and often criticized for lacking empirical rigor, they do contribute to the broader inquiry into the nature of consciousness and what might happen after we die. The possibility that consciousness could exist independently of the body challenges our traditional scientific paradigms and suggests that our understanding of death may be incomplete. Another intriguing area of scientific inquiry is the study of biocentrism, a theory proposed by Dr. Robert Lanza. Biocentrism posits that life and consciousness are central to understanding the nature of the universe, and that death may not be the end of consciousness. According to this theory, space and time are constructs of the mind, and what we perceive as reality is deeply connected to our consciousness. In this view, death could be seen as a transition rather than an end, with consciousness playing a fundamental role in shaping our experience of the universe. This perspective, while still speculative, offers a thought-provoking bridge between science and spirituality, suggesting that our existence might be far more complex than we can currently comprehend. Many other people believe in different ideas about what happens after we die. Some believe in heaven, a place of peace and happiness where we are reunited with our loved ones. I remember my grandmother used to say that heaven is where we finally find rest after all the struggles of life. She described it as a beautiful garden filled with everyone she loved, where there was no pain or worry, just joy and togetherness. For people who believe in heaven, death is not something to be feared. It's a promise of something better, a place where we are rewarded for the good we have done in life. This belief provides comfort, especially in difficult times. It gives meaning to the idea of living a good life, being kind, helping others, and staying true to one's values, so that when our time comes, we find peace and happiness in the afterlife. I remember sitting with my grandmother as a child, listening to her stories of heaven. She spoke of meeting her parents again, of being reunited with friends who had passed away before her. She talked about an endless sunny day, where the air was always warm and laughter filled the spaces between the trees. It made me think of heaven not as a place in the clouds, but as a feeling, an experience of peace, love and connection that knows no end. Others believe in something more abstract, a return to the universe itself, like a drop of water returning to the ocean. This idea comes from various spiritual traditions that see the individual soul as part of a greater whole. When we die, we don't just vanish. We merge back into the source of all existence. It's a peaceful idea that we become part of something greater, that our essence, our energy, rejoins the vast universe. Imagine standing by the shore of an ocean. You scoop up a handful of water. It has its own shape, its own presence. But when you let it go, it returns to the ocean, becoming one with it again. This belief suggests that our essence is like that water, and death is simply the moment when we return to the larger whole. It's a comforting thought that in the grand scheme of things, we are never truly gone. We remain part of the vast, interconnected web of existence. This perspective is often found in Hinduism, where the concept of Atman, the individual soul, and Brahman, the universal soul, plays a central role. In this belief system, the individual soul is ultimately part of the greater universal consciousness. When we die, the Atman merges back into Brahman, much like a drop of water returning to the ocean. This union represents the ultimate realization of oneness with the universe, a state of liberation known as moksha. Moksha is the release from the cycle of rebirth and the attainment of a state of eternal bliss and unity with the divine. Similarly, in some indigenous traditions, death is viewed as a return to the earth and the natural world. The body returns to the earth, nourishing it, while the spirit becomes part of the land, the sky, or the ancestors. This perspective emphasizes the interconnectedness of all life and the idea that death is not an ending, but a transformation, an ongoing part of the cycle of nature. It highlights the sacred relationship between humans and the environment, reminding us that we are an integral part of the natural world and that our existence continues in different forms. And then there are those who believe that death is simply the end. For them, this belief makes each moment of life even more precious. It reminds us to live fully because this life is all we have. My friend once told me that for her, the idea of there being nothing after death made her appreciate life so much more. She said, "If this is all we get, then I want to make every second count." And there's something powerful in that, an urgency to live well, to love deeply, and to make the most of every opportunity because it's finite. This perspective encourages people to focus on the here and now. It's about making the most out of today, being present, being kind, and finding joy in the small things. Whether it's enjoying a beautiful sunset, spending time with loved ones, or simply feeling grateful for the breath in your lungs, this view teaches us to appreciate life for what it is without worrying too much about what comes next. Existentialist philosophers have often echoed this sentiment. Jean-Paul Sartre and Albert Camus, for instance, argued that in a world without inherent meaning, it is up to each individual to create their own purpose. Death, in their view, is a finality that underscores the importance of our choices and actions. Camus famously spoke of embracing the absurd, the conflict between our desire for meaning and the indifferent universe, and finding freedom in the acceptance of this reality. By acknowledging death as the end, we are encouraged to live authentically, to forge our own paths, and to find beauty in the fleeting nature of existence. In the end, what happens when we die might depend on what we believe. For some, it's a journey to a new life. For others, it's a place of rest or a return to the universe. And for many, it's still an open question, a mystery that fills us with hope and curiosity. Maybe the real lesson here is not about death, but about how we choose to live, how we love, how we grow, how we connect with others. These are the things that matter most, regardless of what comes after. When we think about death, it can feel overwhelming or even frightening. But perhaps it's also an invitation to live more fully, to appreciate the people we love, to be kind, to learn, and to grow. Life is a journey, and so is death. And even though we don't know exactly what happens when we die, we do know that we have this moment right now to make the most of. Death may be inevitable, but how we face it and how we live until that moment arrives is up to us. Let's make each day count, not by fearing the end, but by embracing the beauty of every breath, every smile, and every connection we make along the way. So what really happens when we die? The truth is, no one knows for sure, and maybe that's what makes life so special. What truly matters is how we live today, how we make the most of every moment, how we find meaning, and how we love the people around us. If this exploration resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share your thoughts in the comments. Let's continue to explore the mysteries of life together, one step at a time.